The Conspiracy of Christianity, Part 1. If you are a Christian, how many times have you been presented with the truth about the origin of Easter? This question applies to every single Christian holiday observed by the masses of Christianity. The Bible is the only basis and foundation for a so-called Christian's belief and practice of faith. I say so-called because the name Christian is a name ascribed to the followers of Christ, and this name was specifically a designation given to those followers by their persecutors. Acts chapter 11, verse 26. That name by far has been exploited ever since the official establishment of Christianity in the early 4th century AD. Prior to that time frame, Christianity, as we know it today, was not practiced in no way, shape, or form as it has been from the 4th century onward. By now, many Christians are familiar with the name Constantine, the so-called Great. He is called the Great because during his time he was considered equal to the holy apostles in the Bible. But those same Christians may not be aware of the extent Constantine influenced what is practiced as Christianity today. The year is 325 AD. The events of that year in the early stages of what would become the most powerful politically and military empire of that era. The alleged first emperor and pope of the ancient Roman Empire, Flavius, Valerius, Aurelius, Constantinus, Augustus, stamped his signature on the more significant practices that typically are associated with Christianity. Sunday church services. Constantine is the singular most religious man that disregarded the Sabbath day for the day of the sun, which is Sunday. Christians who know this fact choose to blatantly ignore it using the human rationale that it doesn't matter, or what difference does it make? It makes all the difference of obeying the Most High or disobeying the Most High. There are always consequences to disobedience. 40 days of Lent, Good Friday, and Easter Sunday are concoctions of the ancient Roman Catholic Church presided over in its infancy by Flavius, Valerius, Aurelius, Constantinus, Augustus. Some of the major conspiracies of Christianity is specifically the topic of this post. But study into the religious part of the ancient Roman Empire beginning with 200 AD through 800 AD, and you will find paganism mixed heavily with the scriptures to form what is known as Christianity. The scriptures plainly warn us, "Let both grow together until the harvest. And in the time of the harvest I will say to the reapers, Gather ye together first the tares, and bind them in bundles to burn them, but gather the wheat into my barn." Matthew chapter 13 and verse 30, the Gospel of Matthew. Christianity is wheat mixed with tares. You see, Christianity is its own religion masked behind the Bible. Small pockets of Christianity allegedly represent the message of the Bible. But pagan practices within Christianity are so ingrained in the mind of Christians that it takes the Ruach HaKodesh to break the chains of religious brainwashing. We start with the most blatant religious imagery known throughout the nation of America. The following imagery will have snippets of the greatest conspiracy action of the misleading of Christianity. This guy is known to scores of blacks and predominantly white Christians as Jesus Christ. Joseph Smith of Mormonism even capitalized on this image that dates back to the 14th century. But for now, let's give brief summaries of these quasi-religious characters. This guy, Leonardo da Vinci, known as one of the Renaissance men, is responsible for painting this guy, who they call Jesus Christ by most white followers and gullible, misled black Christians. This guy, Cesere Borgia, employed this guy, Leonardo da Vinci, in the service of his military. While da Vinci was not a military man, his abilities and knowledge was used by Cesare Borgia, Duke of Valentinos, as strategy to build and secure Cesare's rise to the papacy. Both da Vinci and Borgia were intimate friends. Whether on a sexual level, I do not know, and it is not relevant at this point. However, Da Vinci, as most of Cesare's subjects, revered, admired, and worshipped Cesere Borgia. Of course, during this time frame, and even further back, a prince was addressed as my lord. Da Vinci's relationship went further than just honoring the son of Pope Alexander VI, this guy, whom I will address later. Leonardo da Vinci is best known for the world-renowned paintings of the Annunciation, Mona Lisa, and The Last Supper. The 1940 painting of this guy is a more polished and refined painting, but put side by side with Cesare Borgia, looks strikingly similar. This guy, Warner Sallman, is responsible for painting most of the European white images of who we were falsely taught under a slave mentality represented Jesus Christ of the Bible. Turns out the high forehead, perfectly sculptured nose, and full beard, long blonde hair with blue eyes looks way too similar to Cesare Borgia. The strong similarities compel us to identify this guy as a fraud. Originally painted by Leonardo da Vinci sometime during the 16th century. Now, if the papacy or so-called Holy See or the Pope allegedly represents some form of Christianity by worshiping the Savior through the once Virgin Mary, Pope Alexander VI was a horrible representation of Christ, of Mary, whom they revere, and Catholicism. Pope Alexander VI admittedly bore 6 children to his mistress, of which Cesare Borgia is one of them. The ungodly dynasty of Pope Alexander VI with his illegitimate child was inspired by the work of Leonardo da Vinci. To make their Jesus resemble his son is certainly an extreme, sad state of the infiltration and takeover of Christianity. A few years ago, Showtime ran a series titled The Borgias, Hell Bent, in which Hollywood undoubtedly used a great amount of artistic liberty. Nonetheless, the characters portrayed in the series were based on actual people who lived during the 15th and 16th century. These true-life people bolstered a reputation of evil, conspirators, corruption, cruelty, and unsolved murders. The Borgias were a wicked, conspiring, corrupted, ungodly family, yet using the name of God as Pope, Cardinal, Regent, and so-called spiritual people. But that's not the real issue. Out of all this lying, corruption, cruelty, and murder comes the image that Christians adore and actually pray to, this guy, who is actually this guy. To recap, this guy, Pope Alexander VI, who admittedly bore 6 children to his mistress, one of which was this guy, Cesare Borgia, Duke and Cardinal, who employed this guy, Leonardo da Vinci, the famous Italian painter of the Renaissance era, who painted this guy that people falsely call by the name Jesus Christ, who centuries later was refined by the modern artist Warner Sallman in 1940. Centuries of lies and deliberate falseness, from physical slavery into religious mental slavery, wrongfully and deceptively taught to gullible black Christians who swear this guy, wrongly named as Jesus Christ, is the true Messiah, when in fact the image of this guy is the greatest fraud and religious conspiracy the world has ever known. This is H.S. Yaakov, his bondservant and watchman. Shalom wa barak ak wa akwa. Always to the esteem of the Most High, Elohim Yah.